how to find the non-schoolish homeschool teacher within you. This is a subject that's dear to my heart because when I started homeschooling, I kid about it now, but it wasn't funny 25 years ago. My kids didn't like me. My husband didn't like me. I didn't like myself. I changed completely who I was when I started homeschooling because I thought I had to follow a public school model. I thought I had to be a public school teacher. Well, I'm not a public school teacher. I don't have a public school background. I can think outside of the box, and we want to use those strengths for homeschooling. But what happens when our personality collides with homeschooling? And there's so many different approaches and there's so much to learn. How can we utilize our strengths? How can we find them to help our children? How about if our personality collides with our children's learning personality? I hope to cover some of that in this video today. My name is Tina Robertson. I have a site, Tina's Dynamic Homeschool Plus. My Facebook page is How to Homeschool Easy, with the letters easy, and Pinterest is at Tina's Homeschool. I have homeschooled 25 years. I have 3 homeschool grads. I've created online self-paced courses. I used to teach new homeschoolers in person in Texas for about 10 years. So I've brought that curriculum that I wrote online to benefit many more homeschoolers. Some of them are not new. They've been homeschooling for a few years, but they still need some support on various topics. And that is on my teachable platform, How to Homeschool Easy. But I always make these videos about you. And please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up. I love those kind of things when I see them. And if you want to comment and tell me where you're from, I like that too because I like visiting with you. I'm from Texas, like I explained, so let me know where you're from. Now let's hop into this talking about how to mesh our personality. See, my problem was, as this is a confession session, probably is, my problem was when I first started homeschooling, I didn't want my kids being behind. And a lot of parents, when they over homeschool, I've talked about that before, it comes from a good place in their heart. The good of it means that they're conscientious. They want to do a good job. But also what happens is that I followed the same model that was in public school that wouldn't work for my kids. Now, the kind of person that I am, I row organized, and I'm very detailed. And that wasn't conducive to what I thought was a relaxed approach. Oh, and let me go even further and tell you this while I'm confessing. It's awful. I didn't think I was judgmental, but I was judgmental of persons who said they had a relaxed homeschool because I equated relaxed with lazy. And they're 2 different terms. I could have used some relaxed when I first started and to be reminded of it through my journey of homeschooling. So let me just throw that out there that this is no judging, that we all need to determine what kind of teachers we want to be. What kind of home educators do we want to be? So knowing that about myself, that I couldn't just have knee-jerk reactions, that I had to have a schedule and a routine, and I was organized, and I am, yes, a morning person. I'm very different from a lot of my followers who are night owls. I know us morning people are out there, and even if you're a night owl, I'm glad you're here too. But the point is, if you're a night owl, you're going to have to roll with the way that you organize, the way that when you're at your best, at your peak. You can't become somebody you're not. If you're a morning person, that's your best time to see how can you improve. If you're a night person, that's your best time. So the point I'm making is how do we make a fire in our kids for learning without giving up our personality and making it only about our kids? Oh, yes, homeschooling is all about our kids. But you're very important. The way you teach, what you have to support yourself, and the passion that you need to have to keep laying this learning, laying these things at the feet of your children, to keep them passionate about learning and to nurture them. We want an environment for that. And it's true, children do model what they see. Are you passionate about learning? How can we do that? Well, some things that I have learned, I want to share those tips with you when you feel like maybe you need to step back and you've become too structured or too overly public schoolish. How can you find that home educator within, that passionate home educator? Well, let me share some tips of what I did. The first thing I did when I realized I didn't like anything about the way I was teaching my children was I stepped back and I started with a content subject. Now, I started with something very small, because sometimes what happens is we throw out the schedule, we throw out the books, we throw out the curriculum, we throw out the kids. No, we don't throw out the kids. I felt like it. But sometimes we do extreme things. So the point I'm making is start with something small. Start with something small that will help you hone in on what your strengths are as a homeschool educator. So what I started with was a content subject. So what is a content subject? A content subject would be a subject that doesn't have to be taught particularly in an order, like math, grammar, spelling. Sometimes it's really important to kind of build on a foundation, and then subtraction, addition, multiplication. You just build when you're learning math. But there's other subjects, other topics, science related, geography related, history related, music, art. Sure, there's some basics to that. But the point is, a child can learn as much as he wants to in one day. The skill subjects like math, reading, writing, sometimes a child can only have a little bit, step away from it, let that sink in and come back to it. And the content subjects that I mentioned, they're just fun. So what I did is I stepped away and I thought, okay, it takes time to move away from segmented subjects like I was doing, and to understand that all bodies of knowledge are connected. I even wrote that out here in front to remind myself to tell you that. It takes time to move away from segmented subjects and understand that all bodies of knowledge are connected. Now, why is that important? Why am I saying that? Because I want you to know that it's okay to let go. It's okay to let go. Letting go is not throwing all caution to the wind. Letting go is learning with passion. It's following your child's leads. And once you find out that all bodies of knowledge are really connected, there's really no behind. You also learn there's holes in every education. I thought, oh, my kids are going to have a gap or holes by high school. Guess what? They did. They did. It's okay. Everybody will have these holes. Now, were they significant things that were behind it? No, they weren't. I made sure that the skill subjects, reading and writing, arithmetic, stayed in the front. But we revolved a lot around them with the content subjects. So I tried to move away from a lot of segmented subjects, just kind of spoon feeding. And how did I do that? Well, I opened up a living book. I presented books to them, field trips, learning opportunities, so they could stay all day long in what they wanted to learn about. And so, and remembering that all bodies of knowledge are connected, they're going to learn as much as they want to on a particular subject, as deep as they want to. Okay, so I started with a content subject. The next thing that I incorporated to be the kind of homeschool educator I wanted to be, since I didn't like myself still, were field trips, living books, and projects. Now, remember, I explained to you that what I did starting out, I don't believe I mentioned this, is that I did a lot of workbooks with my kids. They were young. And I still hear moms tell me, but my kid is 4 and he likes workbooks. Okay. They don't know any different. If that's what they're seeing and that's what's in front of them, they think it's learning, that's what they're going to do. But workbooks never nurtured a love for learning. Some kids do like them in high school as they get older, but hands-on, learning through all the modalities, all the senses, field trips, living books, projects, collaborating, these things nurture higher level critical thinking. And I had to move away from thinking that a completing of a workbook or worksheet was mastery for my child. It was not. It was not. I wasn't breeding an independent learner by just laying all these subjects out to them and not having some free time to explore. For me, I was trying to handicap my kids by relying on me for all the learning. And I didn't want that. They were young. I had many years still left ahead of me. I wanted to change that. This was their journey. It wasn't about me. And that's another thing I had to remember as the teacher. Don't give up everything of who you are, but just remember it is about your kids. What's the best approach for them? What's their learning personality? How do they learn best? From my struggle, I created an online course about how to find out what is your child's learning personality. Because the first child I had, he was my same learning personality. But I had a rude awakening when my others came because they learned very opposite of me. How was I going to rise to that occasion to teach them if I didn't educate myself on the best way for them to learn, if I didn't get out of my comfort zone? So that's why I did field trips, a lot more living books, a lot more projects, collaborating with each other. Okay, now here's the other thing, another tip that I did, and I try to tell myself that everyone is passionate about something. And I hear it all the time. I hear all the time from some of my followers and persons that I have helped, moms I've helped in my workshops. My kid is not interested in anything. He just wants to play games or ride his bike or whatever. Insert anything other than school into the blank. But see, even games have educational value. And no, I was not like this when I first started. Even my husband wasn't on board with game playing. That's just idle time that we're wasting. We have to do a boring worksheet. And I've come up, like I said, a long way from when I first started because I realized the value of developmentally curriculum that is developmentally, easy for me to say, right for my child. That means age appropriate is what I'm trying to say, age appropriate. It goes with their development. Worksheets do not go with the development of a 4-year-old. What goes with their development is playing. They learn through playing. And then as kids grow older, then they use their whole body, their senses, their minds, everything's involved. Learning is about involving all of the body senses, not just a worksheet. So the point is, turn fun into learning. That was the secret. How can I turn their fun into learning? And sometimes I think that's the hardest part for personalities who want to stay structured. And so from that, I will say this too, is that because my other kids learned better hands-on, I started creating lap books. I have a lot of free lap books on my site, Tina's Dynamic Homeschool Plus. And again, I was judgy. Yes, I admit it. I was thinking lap books were for those crafty homeschoolers, and I'm not a crafty homeschooler. But I found out they're not. They're just a hands-on tool. And my kids learn best by hands-on. Sure, they can be as crafty as you want them to be or not. And no, it's not all about cutting. If all your kids are doing is cutting mini books, who wants to do a lap book like that? I have a lot to say about lap books. But I realized it's a hands-on tool and it's a natural way for my kids to review material. I don't have to stick a test or quiz, which I wanted to move away from, in front of them. So that field, check. Another one of the boxes of the kind of educator I want to move away from and be for my children a relaxed one, a passionate one, a creative one, but still having my personality of structure, because I love that word, structure. But lap books they took some time to create. But 25 years later, I can tell you, we have many of them. And my children still enjoy going back and look at them. And all through the years, they served as a way for review, natural review. And what kid doesn't want to get his lap book and open it up and show everybody what work he did? And as he's saying it in a natural way to his grandparents, he's reviewing the material. Anyway, I have a video more about what lap books are, but I just wanted to tell you, from that wanting to be different came the lap books, wanting something fun. So turn something fun into learning. If it's game, turn it into something fun. They have Minecraft curriculum now. So many fun things we have. Learning doesn't have to be torturous. It surely does not mean that way. So, and here's another point. I want to make another point. Also, trade reading for doing. My kids love reading. We all love reading. But just to read about science. Science is not just about reading. Science is about doing the activities. It kind of reminds me, I've used this illustration before. Reading a recipe does not make an elite chef, right? You have to get in there in the kitchen and actually make a mess before you get these masterpieces. I love food too. I love to cook. So I'm always using some example about that. So just reading the recipe doesn't mean you can do it. It sometimes doesn't really inspire passion. But when you read it and then you apply it to doing, that inspires passion. So sometimes you have to step back from reading. And yes, we have a lot of kids. Not everybody loves reading, but that is a secret tip. When I had two kids that didn't like it, I was able to turn the reading into doing. And it made it fun because they looked forward to an activity to apply what they were learning on reading. And of course, it gave a valuable meaning for them to be able to read. So also another thing that I did is I surrounded my house with reference books, more living books, and threw out textbooks. I didn't really want textbooks in my house. We used very few of them through the years. But having a reference book or a living book, which talks about a subject in a story form, that nurtured my kids' love for learning. And it was able to feed all the personalities that I had that I was teaching. Each of them had a different personality. They were all different. Now, how am I supposed to be able to teach all these different personalities? Well, that's why a living book, a reference book that was suited for each child allowed them to learn on their timetable. And here's another point I want to make. Just remember this. And this was a hard part for me because as a conscientious parent, we think this is what we're supposed to do. Not being told every subject to cover breeds fierce, independent learners. It just does. I see that in my grown sons now. And I step back from that. I step back from the spoon feeding without giving up the structure. It was a balance. I had a framework. How did you do that, Tina? Well, I had a framework for them to work on, to guide them. That's my job. It wasn't just, free time, whatever you want to do. And even sometimes, and I did employ probably some of the unschooling approach, but it still was guided. But even unschooling approach has really changed its meaning through the years. And there's a lot that make homeschooling fit them or unschooling fit them, which means it doesn't mean that you don't have anything to do. It doesn't mean you don't have any routine or schedules. They've got routine and schedules, not all of them. But some of them embrace unschooling and still have some framework. And that's probably more how I rolled once I figured out what kind of teacher I wanted to be for my kids. And of course, I changed from textbook approach to unit study. Unit study approach fit our lifestyle so we could learn as long as we wanted to, without any deadlines, go as deep as we wanted to, and learn about what we wanted to, and realize that we can connect all bodies of knowledge. So the point that I'm making is we don't want to tell our children every subject. When they come up with the subject, they become fiercely independent in their learning. So those are just a few of my tips that I want to share with you today. So what I'm saying to wrap this up is turn any perceived weakness you may feel that you have about your personality into a strength. Analyze it. You know, one fear that relaxed homeschoolers have is they're not going to cover everything. It's the same fear for home educators who even have a structured approach. So what I did was I turned that fear into guidelines, like I was explaining, structure of, okay, we're going to have free time here. We're going to do some guided time here. And that way I didn't feel like I was just giving it all up. And also, it gave my children more control over their time. So hear my heart when I say that letting go of all organization, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. A balanced approach is the answer, a relaxed approach. And just remember, there is a difference between lazy and relaxed. Don't follow me that way. Don't do that. Find your teacher, the non-schoolish teacher within you, while you still use your strengths, is what I'm trying to say. Not while you still have your strengths, you still have them. But find that non-public school teacher within you. Use that to teach your children. Don't be hard on yourself. And don't just throw all caution to the wind and try to be somebody that you're not. That's the other point I'm making. I couldn't be any other type of homeschooler. I have to embrace all my strengths and all my weaknesses. So turn the weakness into a strength. If you find that you have a weakness and you want to turn it into a strength and you're not sure how to, post your question here. Let me help you. I love doing that. Let me help you. If you have a question and you think, okay, or I have a child that learns like this and this is how I learn, how do I do that? And also I will post that online self-paced course about learning personality, because I help you to identify your child's learning personality. And I give tips also on how to teach the different types of personality, as well as curriculum that fits better their personality. So I think on a phone, you just click more and it goes down and shows a description. And I think on the laptop, or is it the opposite way? There's the 3 dots and you click it down, and I'll have those links in the description. Anyway, thank you for being here. I hope you have a super day.